For today's video, I would like to ask all of you who are watching this video to have just a brief moment of silence for the late Sir Stan Lee. Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome to another video. If you haven't heard by now, Stan Lee has passed away at the age of 95. When the news had finally been released, I was heartbroken, distraught, and just at a complete loss for words. No matter how much time we had, we could never be fully prepared for this day. But for today, me and my team figured it would be best to take a brief break from mourning and instead celebrate the life that he lived. So for today, we are going to be looking at the top 5 Stan Lee cameos. Coming in at number 5 is one that a lot of you probably won't expect to see on this list. It's one that a lot of you might not even have seen because it was a movie that not everyone was a big fan of or was rushing to the theaters to see. But it is a cameo that was totally unexpected and probably my favorite part of this entire movie. And that is Stan Lee's cameo in Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Hey! Stan Lee? I'm back. I don't care if it's a DC movie. I love cameos. Not now, Stan Lee! Excelsior!
In a DC movie, in a DC animated movie at that, to see an animated Stan Lee bouncing around off the walls with his typical humor, his Excelsiors, and just this over-the-top nature, it was pretty hilarious, and I loved every minute of it. And like I said, probably my favorite part of this entire movie. Coming in at the number 4 spot is his cameo in Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Oh, man. I am so fired.
It was the moment that I laughed the absolute hardest at in that movie, when suddenly he was going to say something else. It really threw me for a loop, and I found it to be absolutely hilarious, and to this day, every time I watch The Winter Soldier, that is still a shining light in that movie that's otherwise pretty dark. Coming in at the number 3 spot is going to be his cameo in Captain America once again, but Captain America: Civil War.
You okay?
Are you Tony Stank?
Yes, this is Tony Stank.
Yes, Tony Stank, not Stark. Again, it is a moment that we still refer to all the time. We'll say Tony Stank as a joke. Even Don Cheadle's roadie says Tony Stank. Yep, that's not going anywhere. That's going to stick around. Yep, this is him, Tony Stank. And it's something that I'll still refer to in a joking manner. Oh, you know, that moment with, Tony Stank. It's something that's really going to carry over. And especially now with Stan Lee's passing, I feel like this is definitely one that's going to carry on throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe for as long as Robert Downey Jr. is still in it. And a way that fans are always going to refer to Tony Stark as now. He's going to be forever known as Tony Stank. Coming in at the number 2 spot and the runner-up for my favorite Stan Lee cameo is one that all but confirmed a favorite fan theory, and that is that Stan Lee is almost an interdimensional time-traveling being who either is a Watcher or works for the Watchers.
Oh, man. Anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted, at that time, I was a Federal Express man.
It's basically saying, hey, yeah, you guys were right, or at least kind of poking fun at the theory and saying that, well, yeah, it's not something we specifically planned, but, we're gonna have a little fun with it. For the honorable mentions, I could say pretty much every other Stan Lee cameo. I mean, there's some where you just kind of see him in a brief passing of the camera, or he'll pull some civilians out of the way, as you expect he would, to pull them out of imminent danger. But I will give a few names in particular of other cameos that I really did consider putting on this list that I always get a good chuckle out of. Those being The Amazing Spider-Man 1, in which he plays Stan the Librarian, and when Spider-Man and the Lizard bust into the library, but he has his headphones on listening to his classical music, he does not know what is going on behind him, and it's absolutely hilarious, and it's comedy gold. He doesn't even have to say a single word, but it is absolutely genius, and it is a wonderful scene. Next is all 3 Avengers movies. Just the fact that he's nonchalant about all these things, like in the Avengers, he says, superheroes in New York, give me a break. I mean, he pretty much put every superhero in New York. As well as when Thor says in Age of Ultron that this wasn't meant for any mortal man, and Stan Lee says neither was Omaha Beach, hand it over, Blondie. And later on you get his famous catchphrase in a kind of drunken state, Excelsior. As well as in Avengers Infinity War when he says, what, have you never seen a spaceship before? Like it's just any other day. And lastly, for the honorable mentions, is his cameo in Spider-Man Homecoming, in which he says, don't make me come down there, you little punk, to Spider-Man, arguably his most famous creation. And now for the number 1 spot, and my top pick, my favorite Stan Lee cameo, is his cameo in Spider-Man 3.
You know, I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
And I feel like this is the one that is going to live on the absolute longest and the absolute most now. I've seen people quoting it constantly over the last 24 hours, and with good reason. Most people, when they were quoting this moment from the movie, they weren't referring to Spider-Man. They were referring to Stan Lee himself, saying that one person can really make a difference. His characters, worlds, and stories have forever changed the lives of millions. And he will live on forever in our hearts. And his wit, charm, and creativity forever in our comic book pages and on our TV screens. So rest in peace to the man, the myth, the legend, Stan Lee. Thank you for watching. Excelsior.